Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Cats discussion. Tonight, we're actually going to be talking to. Am I right in calling you a men's right activist?
Yes.
Yep. Tonight, we're going to be talking to a men's right activist. So that should be very interesting. We've spoken to somebody that has the ideology of MGTOW beforehand. So now we're going to speak to MRA. And then on Saturday, we're actually going to speak to a second wave feminist as well. I did want to get a third wave feminist, but unfortunately, that doesn't seem that they want to talk to people anymore.
No, they don't. Unless you agree with them, they don't want to talk to you. Oh,
Generally not.
unless it's to throw insults at you.
Yes, there is that. And they're very good at doing that.
Yes. I mean, I'm not sure how long ago it was, but I think about 10 or 11 days ago, I had, I think, 24 of them in my mentions for days on end. Just calling me a rape apologist because I dare mention that women, this is how fucked up they are. They called me a rape apologist for mentioning that a specific group of people get away with rape.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, how does that one even work? It's like you're bringing attention
Gymnastics.
to the fact that people get away with it, and you're somehow justifying it or apologising for it. It's like, what?
It's all gymnastics, mate. It's all gymnastics. Just of the mental kind. Because you're going against women, somehow you're a rape apologist. Because you're talking about rape and you're saying it's somehow women's fault. So somehow you're a rape apologist.
Well, it's only a woman's fault when they're the ones perpetrating the crime.
Exactly. No, exactly. I'm with you. I'm with you. I do. I've had a couple of conversations with people beforehand and private conversations. And when you talk to people that are kind of feminist and kind of proper egalitarian or say that they're for equality, and then you start going into the differences between men and women and stuff like that. And I'm not talking necessarily biological, but just the way that sociology or social is, where you can say, for instance, okay, but is it okay for a man to hit a woman back? Not to go out of his way to hit a woman, but if a woman was starting to hit a man with a shoe, for instance, as you said before,
Yes.
but say she was going to hit a person, would you accept that you would be okay to defend yourself? And then for some reason, most men go no. And I don't understand that.
I was always raised, if someone was hitting you, no matter whether it's a man or a woman, you draw back your fist and hit them back. Self-defense takes priority over whether someone's a woman or not.
See, unfortunately, I was taught the opposite way. It took me a long time to get out of that, should we say, ideology, that way of thinking. Because for me, it was always a case of, okay, well, she's a woman, I can't hit her back, and that's the way that society was. I'm going to be looked down upon and everything else. That it's better to take the beating than it is to take the licking after the men's come after you, so to speak.
Yeah, but the thing is, I was raised by two women, my mum and my nan. My nan was the very first anti-feminist I knew. She was born in a time where feminism was ripe and like the 1950s. She was born in 52. So by the time feminism was ripe in the 60s, she was becoming a young teenager. So obviously she was there to see it all, and she really didn't agree with most of what they were saying.
I mean, I think it's really interesting when you get, I suppose, using people's tags, identity politics, where you have groups of people that have these sayings of identity, but yet everybody's different, even in those ideologies, even in the ideology of feminism, socialism, communism, capitalism, whatever ism you want to use. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different grasp of it. Everybody has a different take on it. But everybody is treated the same way, regardless, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this as a little mini series, because I wanted to go into the ideologies and I wanted to talk to the people that actually had the ideologies or the ideas, rather than just going, well, here's my preconception, they're all idiots or they're all arseholes or they're all this or they're all that. I want to actually listen to people.
Well, yeah, I mean, I used to just, I will admit, I used to generalize feminists a lot, but now I've got to the point where I'm trying to listen and talk to each individual one that I can and get their opinion on things, because as you said, they're not all the same. People need to realize that. Like, I'm not the same as the next MRA you meet. We may have some of the core values, but how we want to achieve say the outcomes of the equal rights and shit,
well,
they may be different. Like there are some MRIs out there who want to ban abortion altogether, where to obviously combat male having to pay child support. So if men have to pay child support, then women have to go through with their obligation. Like me, I don't agree with abortion personally, but I will not stop a woman getting the right, or so not the right. It's technically a privilege because it only applies to women, but I won't stop a woman getting an abortion. I may not agree with it, but I won't stop her.
Yeah.
I, however, prefer the point of to get a man equal to a woman when that comes to that is a man should be able to, in the same time a woman can legally abort, a man should be able to say, nope, I did not consent to this child. I do not want anything to do with this child. That way all of his rights, responsibilities, including financial responsibilities, are waived away, and if she chooses to keep it, then it falls all on her. Because if a woman has the right to choose, then so should a man. I mean, 9 times out of 10, a man will own up and be the father.
I don't know if it's that high, but I agree with you that most men would.
Yeah, most men would own up, be the father, and obviously walk the walk and raise the child.
Yeah.
But there are some out there who aren't ready to be a father, who obviously, what happens if he's raped and it results in pregnancy? He has no recourse. He would, under the law, have to pay child support to a child he didn't consent to, that was obtained by illegal means. I mean, I've been looking it up, and there was one case of a man and a woman had oral sex. She gave him a blowy, basically. He used a condom, finished inside the condom, chucked it away. After he'd fallen asleep, she had gone to the bin
and did a dirty.
Took that semen, inseminated herself, and he has to pay child support. Because under the courts, that semen is legally hers, and she can do with it what she chooses once it leaves his body.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, so in that case, the man should be able to say, no, I didn't consent to that child. I do not want to pay for that child. I want nothing to do with it.
Unfortunately, I suppose it's very, very hard to be able to prove what happened. And don't get me wrong, I am with you on the principle of the idea, but it's very hard for instance, to say, I said that in a court of law, but she was saying something completely different, that we did it all together. It's very, very hard to prove whose side of the story is correct.
Yeah, but
you would generally err on the side of what would normally happen. You don't normally get crazy women that would normally do that.
It's actually more common than people think it is.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying generally that it would be more common for people not to think that happens than to think it does.
Yeah. But when you actually look into it, it's more common than people actually think it is. Like, people are saying about men having, like, feminists are freaking out that that men are now starting to get some forms of contraception other than condom. But it's because condoms can be sabotaged very easily. All it takes is one tiny prick that you don't even have to see. And that's it. You can say you use the condom all you like. But in the eyes of the court, you are on the hook for child support.
Yeah, well, that's the reason why they give the 99.9%. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know it's intentional sabotage, so it's not covered by the generalization in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, as soon as it goes to court and goes, oh, well, even if you can't prove that the person put a prick in the hole or whatever, it's still your semen. You still did something. There you go.
Or if, like in a case like Schumer, she admitted herself that she raped a guy. What most people would think was rape for a woman, she did to a man. He was basically out of it, in and out of consciousness. At a party when she was in college, she rode him. If that would have resulted in a pregnancy, he'd be on the hook for 18 years of child support.
Yeah.
illegal activity. Like there's a case where a 14-year-old was coerced into sex with his teacher, or as I like to call it, rape, because that's exactly what it is.
Oh, it's statutory rape, regardless of even people think it's rape. It's still statutory rape.
Yes, because he was underage at the time, and as we all know, those who are underage cannot consent.
Exactly.
There's a reason for that.
Yep.
Yeah, but she went to court and sued him, I think, after he turned like 18 or 20, for child support for that child, and she won.
Wow.
Yeah, the court ruled that despite the methods that she used to conceive that child, the child was still his. He had to pay. I mean, I've got here. Let me just see if I can find the image, if I didn't delete it or not, because I'm prone to doing that lately. Gathering images here. It's something that I found a while ago. The following month, a white ginger-haired man was pursued by CSA, Child Support Agency for those non-English people, for $11,500 in maintenance fee.
Wow.
For the 2 black children of a woman he had never met.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute there. I'm not sure if people realise how DNA works.
No, but the thing is, you don't even need to provide DNA to say someone's a child, say someone's father. All you have to do is point to them, say, "There's the father." CSA doesn't support. Doesn't. They're not. The people that need to investigate.
No,
they're just the enforcement agency.
Yeah.
It's not on them, and I can see where they're coming from, because it's not on them to do that. It's on you to prove, and if you say it is, then they have to take them at their word. So if I point to so a woman literally like that can point to just some random man and go, "He's the father," and they're chasing for child support.
So are these some of the main reasons or ideas that got you sort of down this sort of line of thinking of becoming a men's rights activist?
No, feminists did that.
How did that happen?
I went through an unfortunate event in my life. I was raped at knife point by a woman. I went to feminists for help because they claimed that they obviously help men. And they laughed at me, told me I must have wanted it, otherwise I wouldn't have got an erection. And some of them even tried to claim that I had raped her because under our law, rape requires a man to do it.
Yeah, so rape is by definition under our law in the UK by penetration.
Yeah.
So by definition of penetration in the sentences, women cannot rape you unless they're sodomizing you.
Yeah, and that's only with an object, and so
yes.
that's not even classed as rape. That's classed as sexual
assault. That's why I said
sodomy.
That's why I said sodomy.
Yeah.
But no, that's fair enough. I mean, I have a very, very similar story. When I was a little bit younger, I had something similar to you happen, and I went into the police station because I was going to report it straight off of the bat. And the police just went, "Go home. You're fine. You had a threesome." It's like, no, no, that did nothing.
Yeah, no,
that wasn't what happened.
I went to the police, and they basically laughed me out of the station and said, "Unfortunately, that doesn't constitute rape." It's like, I was forced to have sex against my will with a knife through my jugular.
Yeah.
What else would you call that?
I suppose by legal definition, it's forced sex at that point, isn't it? I suppose. I mean, by definition for us, it would be rape, but by law at the minute, it's forced sex.
I mean, I've currently got a petition waiting for approval from the government to try and get that law changed. I mean, we've tried before, but who are they? The Ministry of Justice? I don't know the exact name, but they basically come back and said, because the law generates these specific, basically because the statistics show that men commit 99% of rape, we don't need to update our definition to include female or male rape because 99% of rapists are men. It's like, that's what I try to get across to people. Having a skewed law like that can skew data. If I said...
Exactly.
If there was a law on the books that said it only counted as shoplifting if a woman was to do it, who do you think would show the law? The statistics would show commits the most shoplifting.
Well, obviously, because
obviously it'll be women.
That way.
Yeah.
But I do find it very, very interesting that the Ministry of Justice themselves would actually come out and say that, oh no, we don't need to change the law because the law actually says that 99% of men do this. It's like they're trying to push not necessarily in the agenda, but trying to push statistics to be able to push naps and nothing to do with a case of penetration or whatever, then you would be changing the statistical data that's then taken into criminology.
Well, yeah, I mean,
because you'd have to.
They did this in America. They obviously had the definition, but they did the CDC did a study, and they asked a huge amount of people. I think almost half a dozen million people, like 6 million people. It was a huge one. And it came out that 1.26 million women were raped. And 1.26 million men were forced to penetrate, which is basically the same thing under a different name.
Yeah.
But that shows that it's equal. And 79.2% of those who were obviously made the man penetrate them were the woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously here's the what the government responded to the first time. The government responded, the Sexual Offences Act 2003 protects both men and women from serious sexual offending. We are committed to tackling sexual offending in all its forms. All non-consensual sexual penetration is dealt with by specific serious offences, including those that can be committed by a man or a woman. For example, the offence of assault by penetration carries the same maximum penalty as rape. The sentences available under the Act for all sexual offences are significant and reflect the seriousness of the offending. Issues surrounding the definition of rape were considered in both the Setting the Boundaries Consultation Act, published prior to the introduction of the Sexual Offences Act 2003, and during the passage of Parliament through legislation through Parliament. In the consultation, there was a considerable amount that agreed that rape should remain offence of penile penetration, but the definition be extended to penile penetration of the mouth. It is true that rape under Section 1 of the Sexual Offences Act 2003 is in the majority of cases committed by a man, but there are some rare exceptions, for example, when a woman is actively involved in the commission of a gang rape. We therefore have no plans to amend the legal definition of rape in the Sexual Offences Act 2003 as suggested by this e-petition, Ministry of Justice.
Even though they just basically admitted that if they account for the changing of the law, then it's more equal.
Yeah.
In the statement that you actually just read out. Yeah. I mean, that must get you quite angry, considering that I'm actually more guessing that you're more of an equal rights activist more than a men's right activist, because it sounds to me anyway, and correct me if I'm wrong, obviously you know yourself better than me, but it sounds to me that you're more interested in the equalities rather than actually forcing more rights onto men or anything else like that, or giving more rights to men. You just want everything to be equal regardless.
No, let's see, this is where most people have a misconception about men's rights, MRAs. They think we want to give men more rights. No, we just want men to have the same amount of rights women do. Because as we stand, there are a myriad of rights that women have that men don't. All we want is for men to have those same rights.
So is that what I mean by equal rights then?
Well, no, because equal rights would pertain to if a man has this right, a woman has to have this right, etc., etc. It keeps it level. Whereas MRAs, as Tim Pool once said to his feminist friends, MRAs are some of the only people who see women as equals already. They see that feminists are trying to swing the pendulum the other way and are actively opposed against it because that would give women more rights than they currently have over men as we stand. I mean, like in America, they have the draft. That is a man's only thing. And yet when you try to push for, obviously, either abolishing the draft or having women to sign up for it as well, feminists freak. I've literally seen one feminist say, "We wanted equal rights, but not like this."
Yeah.
It's like, either you have the same rights and same responsibilities and do what men has to do, or you don't, and you don't, or you what's the phrase I'm looking for? Or you stop trying to say that you're a feminist, because a true feminist would say, well, here's a right that, or here's a responsibility that men have that women don't, therefore we should strive for that same responsibility.
Yeah. That's the reason why I was trying to ascertain that. It sounds like you're under the definition of actual equal rights. And the reason why I say actual equal rights is not because, oh, you should have this right, you should have this right, but everybody should be treated the same.
Yes.
Because that's where I am on the spectrum.
Yeah. See,
when it comes to rights.
I never chose the label MOA for myself.
Mm.
I always went under the fact that I wanted equal rights for men because of X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
Feminists actually gave me that label. I was happy to just call myself an egalitarian. But I was constantly attacked when I first started out, going, "You're an MOA, you're an MOA, you're an MOA, you're an MOA." That's what I thought. Fuck it. If you're going to accuse me of being an MOA, I'm going to be an MOA. And now they attack me for it even more. And it's like, you know what? I don't even care. Attack me all you want. You're just showing everybody else that you don't actually care for equal rights. Because obviously, when it comes to family courts, say for example, only 16% of the cases for sole custody are for men, are handed to men.
Yeah.
Whereas 86% are for women, even if the woman is
a bad parent or convicted or got no job or anything else like that.
Yeah, like obviously, I'm not going to say any specific names because obviously it's my family and I don't want them doxxed.
Yeah.
But my aunt, or rather my uncle's ex, she used to obviously steal drugs, this, that, and the other, and used to beat the kids. While my uncle was with her, it got to a point where my uncle was on the phone to my nan, asking what to do, while his ex was beating him in the background.
Yeah.
Thing is, so my nan hung up, phoned the police, gave them the address, and they went there. As they got there and opened the door, they saw him push her off of him, and because she cut herself, he was arrested for domestic violence and given 2 years probation.
Yeah, and because it was a cut, he would have gone up to GBH rather than ABH.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know that the system is more towards women in general. But is that societal pressures from men having the idea of trying to protect women in general? Is it more of a men's problem, for instance, of not necessarily letting the rights change that way, but for believing that these rights should be pushed towards women more? In your opinion.
What was that?
I was saying that if with all, I completely agree with you. That I understand that the laws are stacked against men in some instances. Well, most instances. Do you think that men themselves were the ones that actually stacked the laws into the favor of women, or do you think that women were the ones that are able to implement the laws for themselves in general?
Well, the law I was talking about, obviously, where it comes to unfair custody for women, is that was introduced. That was the tender years doctrine that was introduced by a feminist. She lost her. Before then, it used to be men used to always get the child after divorce because they were the breadwinners. They were able to look after the child more often. But there was one unfortunate event where the woman who pushed for the law to go through lost her child because obviously the father, he did something and the child died. So that's unfortunate. I will grant her that. But she went through law and they got the tender years doctrine passed, which made it so that it flipped, so that women got sole custody after divorce.
I suppose that you could put it down though that women in general, and we are talking in generalities, there are always outliers, obviously, But in generalities, women do make the better caregivers for children, though, don't they?
Yes, but when it used to come to the financial case, it used to be men, because obviously back then women didn't work as much. Now it's the case, but the thing is, now you sit there and mention the unfair family court system to a feminist, and feminists will say, well, that's the fault of men, because men assume that women are the natural caregivers.
Yeah.
That they put partly off to women, totally ignoring the fact that the tender use doctrine was introduced and fought for by women.
Passed by men, so you can see it from their side, though.
Yeah, it was the men that passed the bill, but the introduction of the bill and the wanting it pushed through Parliament to make it a law was done by a woman. It was introduced by a woman. The men just voted and said yes.
Sure. But at the same time, there are bills that are put forward to government and legislation, the Ministry of Justice, all the time, and most of them don't get passed.
Yeah, but no, the ones that obviously do, because back then Parliament was overwhelmingly men, they see it as men passed the bill. No, men just allowed what the public wanted to go through. And back in that time, the public who voted from that were mostly women.
I'm not too sure about that. They were mostly women at that point, but I do.
No, obviously the people who voted for that specific bill were mostly women, because they obviously sympathised with the woman of losing a child.
I mean, I'm not going to go into like debates and things like that or anything, because it's an interview style. Well, it's an interview basically. Yeah. But generally, I would like to be able to know where you got the idea or the statistics for the vote that most people that voted for a particular bill were a particular way. Because I haven't been able to see any sort of statistics on that ever for any bill.
If I can find it.
Rebecca Faith makes a very, very good point in the chat. I think the system was just done on gender stereotypes, which I do agree. I do think that gender stereotypes do fit the genders well. That's the reason why we have stereotypes, and that's the reason why we have gender stereotypes.
Yes, stereotypes wouldn't exist if they weren't true.
Exactly that. I mean, we have stereotypes for every sort of form of race, person, and creed. So why wouldn't they also be in for gender? But afterwards, it should be. She says that it should be presumed 50-50 at first, and then judged on each individual case. And I agree with
fair,
Rebecca.
That's a fair outcome. It gives equal to both, and I can totally get behind that system.
Yeah, I completely not agree, and well done for Rebecca for putting that through, because that's a very, very good and sensible point, to be fair, and I completely agree with that as well. Would you want to carry on rather than being hung up on statistics? Because I don't really think it matters.
I can't find where I got them from, but I know I saw something.
Yeah, that's fine.
Forget about it.
That's fine. I mean, I suppose the real reasons why I wanted to do this mini-series, as I've called it before, about the idea of ideologies, is obviously you said before where the origin of the MRA sort of thing come out. But what was it that drove you further down the rabbit hole, so to speak? Or was it because people were calling you a particular ideology or ideological set that you stuck with it?
No, it's the first, before I knew what MIs were, before obviously I became one and started doing all this research. After what happened to me and the feminists laughed at me, I was stuck with what had happened, and as an 18-year-old with no one to talk to. Eventually I found obviously men's groups online, and they're the only people that helped me through it. So obviously then I started to look into what they were saying about how men are treated in society, because before then I was just not willfully ignorant. I was just an ignorant teenager, unaware of what was happening. But just starting to talk to them, like telling them about what had happened and everything, they were there to obviously sympathise with me and to help me through it. And obviously we was talking more and more, and they were telling me this isn't uncommon for it to happen to men. It's just that these laws exist to obviously high reason. So I got distracted there.
No, that's fine. Like, it's not a problem.
Yeah, to obviously say that it can't happen to men, etc., etc. So I started to look into everything they said, and obviously I went online and I was putting it out there because this was before I even had a following. One Twitter account many years ago that was just private and just me, long since deleted, no trace of it at all. And I was saying about it, and feminists were coming across my posts. I know are trying to say, well, that makes you an MRA, yada, 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 yada. And the more I tried to say, no, I'm not, and the more I tried to say, but this is happening to men, the more they shunned me, the more they like pushed me to over here. Because when people say, like, oh, the left push people to the right, they are true into some sense of degree. Because if you don't agree, 100% with them, then they will think you disagree with them on everything, so they will push you away. And obviously, who are you going to turn to? The people that you not agree with you, but the people who are more
agreeable.
Yeah.
No, I can definitely see that. I mean, to play devil's advocate, because obviously I'm not what you would call a feminist, but to play devil's advocate on this instance, would you see how, if the roles were reversed and you perceive that, as you have done, that there is a particular thing that annoys you or ills you, that you can see sort of, for lack of a better word, fucks up society, would you not see that it could be shifted onto the other way of thinking? Because obviously it's normally an MRA versus a feminist. But what if you're both just seeing the exact same thing from opposite ends of the spectrum, and you're just exactly the same, but having bad incidences that are leading your ideology?
If there's people out there who are basically this, who I don't like all of this us versus them. I'd rather just sit down, talk, come to a central point where we can agree this is bad for women, this is bad for men. Let's find a way to figure out how to fix both of them. I'd rather that than mudslinging. Obviously, when I first started my channel, it was mudslinging because the more videos I made, the more I had feminists coming in and basically saying a lot of abhorrent stuff to me that I cannot respond. Cannot repeat. Some of them were along the lines of, "It's a good thing your daughter died because
that's nice.
Otherwise she would have had to grow up with an MRA for a father."
Yeah.
And this was before I had thicker skin. So that video I did explaining what's happened to me in my life, I deleted because obviously back then I didn't have a thick skin. I was just starting out. I couldn't take it.
To be fair, I don't think anybody should really have to deal with the fact that somebody's saying, "Oh yeah, the fact that your daughter died was a good thing," regardless of whether it was a MRA, a MGTOW, or a feminist, or communist, or whoever. It doesn't matter who's saying it. The person that's saying that is just ideologically abhorrent anyway.
If it's an MRA saying it, I will absolutely denounce them and I will call them out for it. Doesn't matter whether you think like I do or anything. That shit is disgusting.
I know. I completely agree with you.
And this is the point where some feminists go wrong. They'll sit there and think, "Oh, they're a feminist like I am. I won't call out the terrible shit they do." And that's how we end up with this situation where, obviously, you get people thinking all feminists are like that. No, there are some feminists I agree with, like Christina Hoff Sommers, second wave feminist. I agree with her on most of the issues she speaks about. But obviously, there are some things I disagree on, and that's fine. Like, I follow Sophane on Twitter. We disagree a hell of a lot, but I would rather follow him for the stuff we agree on than unfollow him based on a few things we disagree on.
To be fair, I don't really understand why people unfollow people when they have a disagreement. Now, don't get me wrong. If somebody's coming at you and just yibby-yabbering all the way on and not even addressing any points and just going off and calling you names, fair enough. You have every right to do what the fuck you want with that instance, and I completely agree. Do what you want. But when it's just a case of, oh, I believe that this thing should be like this, and you disagree, then why would you go out of your way to block them or get rid of them or stop them? Wouldn't it be better just to have the ideological disagreements, and then you can reframe your arguments for a start, and then understand what the other person's actually thinking anyway?
Yeah,
because let's be honest, regardless of whether you're a MGTOW, MRA, or a feminist, you're all coming from a place that you think is going to benefit society in your own way. And that's the whole point of doing this.
The thing is, some MGTOW don't even believe that. Some MGTOW just literally just want to be left alone and on to go on there with their lives. And obviously, I can get where they're coming from, because obviously the stuff I will be covering in my next video, you can understand why they fuck this. I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can understand how the aspect or the idea of leaving society and going off by yourself is appealing, especially to men in themselves, because that's the way that most men have always been. I want to live the way that society is and everything else like that. Yeah. I do understand that.
Yeah, men are solitary creatures to begin with.
In some ways, I think men have periods of solitude. I think generally we're social creatures.
Oh, humans are general social creatures.
Sorry?
Yeah. Humans are general social creatures to begin with. But as you said, there are points in lives.
I know, I definitely agree with that. There are definitely points in our lives, especially most of the time, I think it's between the ages of around about 16 to about 27, where most men want to either be on their own or they are at their most social. It's either one or t'other. You don't normally get a middle.
Yeah.
They're either at their most social or they're most vulnerable.
Yeah. Like, obviously, you get MGTOW who sit there and go, no, I just want to get on with my life. And then maybe in the future. See, most of their gripe is the unfair family courts, not family courts, divorce courts.
Yeah.
Now, that shouldn't be a thing. If you can work out agreement between you, that should be fine, but there should not be a divorce court. You should be able to divorce amicably. If you want to support her, you can. If you don't, then obviously you both go your separate ways. She goes to what she wants to do, you go to what you want to do, and that's that. It didn't work out, you go be each individual person you want to be. Rather than that man having to split half of everything he has, even the stuff that either he didn't have he had before her, or he wins, say, the lottery after they're separated. Because if after they're separated, a man wins the lottery of, say, like £100 million or something.
Yeah.
Under divorce court, she can go back even after the divorce and say, I want half of that, and the divorce court will award it to her. Which
that's true. That's fucking ridiculous. If they've already made a ruling, then that shouldn't be a case, especially after being divorced. What's happened after divorce is again.
I'm pretty sure I can find
No, I agree with you. It's like I said, it's not a debate type thing. I'm not interested in all.
No, it's just trying to put emphasis on it that you can be divorced from a woman, win an insane amount of money, and then a court that you've previously gone through and made a ruling can go and go, I'll give that half of that to her as well. So what? No, I'm not with her anymore. We settled everything. That's what settle means. It means it all lays bare, comes to an end, and we go on.
Rebecca Faith says in the chat, would that not go if it's lottery wins, would that not go both ways though, if the woman won as well? Or is it only, as you found out, has it only gone for the men's way?
I haven't seen any that have obviously a woman's won and the man's can go back, but I'm sure there are some instances out. What I'm saying is that shouldn't be a case for either of them.
No, I agree.
If you win the lottery after you've already divorced and settled, whether you be a man or woman, you should keep 100% of that, because it's no longer your ex-partner's entitlement to it.
No, I agree. I mean, the reason why I posed the question from Rebecca, because I thought it was a good question, but I knew kind of where your answer was going to go, where it was a case of, well, it shouldn't happen, because if the man's divorced a woman or vice versa, then after you separated, are you not separate? Does that mean that if one was to commit a crime, that the other one would have to be done at the same time for it? Obviously not. So why would it be a case of if you won money after being separate, that you would get the money for it. That makes no sense. And how long is the statute of limitations on that for as well?
Exactly. So this is what we're trying to combat. Stuff like this happens fairly regularly. Most people see it as just part of life and aren't worried about it. Whereas we sit there and think, this shouldn't be happening either way. Say, like I like to bring you back to like the rape law, where obviously it says it doesn't affect men. But that exact same law affects women as well, because it ignores women raped by women. What we're trying to do is we're trying to fix it so it fixes it for everyone by acknowledging women can do the crime.
No, I completely not. You agree?
Yeah, most people will sit there after you explain something like that to them. Like, obviously, we want to not get rid of the law, but we want to adjust the law so it gets rid of penetration as the act, and it's just forceful sex.
Yeah, I think a lot of people react to the emotive side. They react to the moral side of situations, which is a human trait, unfortunately. Most humans don't use the logical side of their brain. They use their emotive side of their brain. So when it comes to talking or debating, generally, most people, regardless of men or women, but generally most people make an emotive decision and that's it. Same thing for abortion, as we touched on before.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, but that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, as I said, I'm in the middle as well. I personally don't agree with it because I've lost a child. There is no love you feel in this world like the love you have for your child. And after you lose them, there's no loss in the world that you feel after you've lost your child.
No, you can imagine that, yeah.
Yeah, but obviously I wouldn't want to stop a woman's privilege of having an abortion. And I do say privilege because in the correct term of the phrase privilege, it's a special right or advantage granted to specific individuals or groups. A man cannot have an abortion, so therefore it is a privilege for a woman. Now, most people say privilege as in it's a negative thing, but I'm good on them to be able to have that privilege. They need it, whereas men need their own set of privileges in that court thing. It's not a case of rights or wrongs, or it's basically just being equal.
Well, that's the thing that I keep on trying to allude to, because I think that we get too hung up on the titles that other people give us. I think our external locus defines who we are more than what our internal locus does. And by that, I mean our external forces shape our thinking of ourselves more than what our internal aspects shape the way that we think. And I think that's, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, and I'm just putting my own opinion out there, and correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that that's kind of gone where you are. You come to the point of thinking that everything needs to be equal, but because people have gone against you, and not you in general, but the ideas, you've kind of adopted what they've called you to try and take back control of what they're trying to say back to you. So you took their external locus and made it your own to try and prove to people that it doesn't bother you that much, if that makes sense.
No, it's I've taken it more because it just shows that they don't argue the points, they argue the person. I basically do it to piss them off.
No, I understand.
I would 100% call myself an egalitarian, but it's because they would rather argue against the person that I call myself it. Because, as I said, I would call myself an egalitarian, drop the MRA label, and be an egalitarian. But when you try to explain things as an egalitarian, they don't argue the points anyway, because what they feel, what they are, or what they know to be correct, and they don't like being told otherwise. I see people like us, if we're wrong, we take that, we go do some research, see, oh yeah, we were wrong, and change there. Whereas if you tell them, some of them, that they're wrong, they will bombard you. And it's got to a point where I have a stalker. I have him continuously blocked because of exactly what I call myself. He'd rather sit there and attack me based on that than my points.
Which is what I was trying to say, that your external locus is being shaped by them rather than it being your internal locus, as in what you want to talk about is being shaped by what their narrative is, rather than your narrative.
My narrative is exactly what I talk about.
No, I understand that, but you call yourself. It sounds like I'm picking at you, and I'm not. I'm just trying to understand.
No, I get what you're trying to say. My positions haven't changed even since after I chose the MRA label. The opinions I have now, I had before I even had the label. The opinions came first, label came after. So it's not shaped what I speak about. I spoke about them before.
No, I'm not saying about what you're speaking about. I'm not saying that your ideas have been shaped by them. I'm saying that the label itself has been accepted from the outside rather than you sticking to egalitarianism.
I technically never had a label before. I just spoke about men's rights.
Okay. That's fair enough.
The thing is, that's what I thought. The MRA label, them calling it to me, when I actually looked into what it was, that fit me best.
No, it's fair enough.
So I thought, why not go with it? And if you know what I mean.
No, I completely understand. Then that goes on to a separate question. Then, if you're more in tune for fighting for men's rights and so on and so forth, as you just said, then would that not be that at this moment in time that you wouldn't be advocating for necessarily equal rights? You're trying to advocate for more men's rights, the same as you would say in general for feminists would be saying exactly the same thing, vice versa.
Yeah, you can say that. I mean, you could say that.
I mean, I'm just trying to look at it from both points of view. Don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not a feminist. I'm just saying that if you're a men's rights activist and they're a feminist, and you've just basically explained the same set of principles, but just remove female and put male in, and vice versa for them, male to female.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
It just seems very, very interesting that the two ideologies are so similar, but yet so diametrically opposed. I suppose it's the same thing with white nationalism and black nationalism. Now, again, no endorsements on either. Obviously,
yes,
you too.
Both are abhorrent.
Yes. But it's very, very interesting, especially in America, that you have white nationalists and you have black nationalists, and both of them want to create their own states and their own versions of their own countries and whatnot.
But only
if they were able to work together, if they were actually able to work together and get past the white and black part, they could actually probably do it.
Yeah, but the thing is, only it comes to the fact that one's bad, one's for safety or etc. Like back in the past in America, segregation was bad. But if you listen to the left in America today, they say that blacks need their own spaces so that they can obviously go and be themselves, which is segregation, but flipped to positive. It's like it's the fact that feminists will sit there and say feminism is good, we do this bloody blah, but these people are bad because they do yada yada yada. And when in reality, all we're trying to do is achieve the same thing: equal rights for both genders.
Yeah. But that's what I was trying to get at with the white nationalists and black nationalists. I was trying to take out the idea of a men's right activist and the idea of feminist, and trying to allude to the point of if the white nationalists and black nationalists were to work together, then they could get what they wanted. Surely, if we were to take away the labels of men's right activists and feminists and put you two together, you'd be able to work out what would actually be equal and take away the identitarianism away from the politics.
We've tried that.
No, I understand. I do understand.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is,
it's a generalization.
Yeah, but the thing is, we offer the olive branch to say we all recognise that there are issues in society that affect both. Why can't we work together? And more often than not, they refuse. I mean, I do have some feminists following me who do follow my tweets and have actually said I've changed their mind on how they view, because I offer the viewpoint from a man, whereas they've only ever been shown the viewpoint from women. It's why
or reinforce their own stereotypes themselves. Yeah. Which, yes, feminists, you do have stereotypes yourselves.
Yeah. I mean, there are... Shut up. So there's a kid running about outside. It's annoying. It's usually quiet because I live in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's usually quiet all the time. But whenever I attempt to record or interview, etc., etc.
Yeah, somebody's always in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Like, it can be quiet from 7 in the morning till whenever I start recording. But the moment I want to start recording, no matter what time it is, there's traffic, there's cars, and like, really, it's like they have a timer or a sixth sense to know when I'm going to record on it. But what was I saying about?
Well, I've got a question for you. Well, actually, Rebecca Faith has made a quite interesting point. I think she was responding to other people, but it kind of slips into what we were actually talking about anyway, which was all men's rights issues and feminist issues arise from the same problem: discrimination based on traditional gender roles and stereotypes. I have my own opinion on this, but as I'm interviewing you, do you think that plays a massive role in both sex, especially on yours?
Yes, to a degree. To a vast degree, yeah. But to a degree, yeah. They expect certain things of men, and they expect certain things of women. And obviously, when they either don't fall into each category perfectly, and obviously there's overlaps, etc., etc. They find there's always comes an issue, like, say, the wage gap. They'll look over the overarching numbers and think, oh, men earn, etc., etc., which is true. Men do earn more than women on average. But like everything, you have to look at the general cause, the root issues, the root what's what I'm looking for?
The root cause.
That's one. Thank you. The root cause of why these things come about. Like, I used to be in a job where I was paid a shit ton of money. But the thing is, a woman came in after I had, and she earned more than I did. Now, feminists will sit there and if that was reversed, to say, oh, the man's getting paid more because he's a man. Sure. I knew it. Obviously, she came in and got paid more than I did because she had more qualifications. Despite me being there longer and having a decent amount of qualifications I had myself, she had more. She had more experience, so that's what she got paid for. And obviously, you need to look, when it comes to this sort of thing, you need to have a look at the whole picture. And that's what people don't do these days. They don't look at whole pictures. Like, feminists don't look at whole pictures when it comes to this right or this and that and something else. And I would admit some MRIs are prone to doing that on my side as well.
I was going to suggest that as well, to be fair.
Because I try to look at everything. Like, when it comes to child rights, abhorrent, we need to do something about that. But most people don't realise is at the same time there's child rooms. And that's what I try to bring up. Like, when they look at saying, oh, here's a man who raped this woman, he got away with it. I'll say, well, yes, but here's this woman who did exactly the same and got exactly the same punishment he did, which is none.
Yeah.
I always try to offer the other side. Like,
I suppose in the instance that you've just used as an example, I suppose, for instance, if somebody was to come up to you and say, oh, my dad got all custody and he was an abusive drunk, for instance, you probably would go, I don't really like that, but at least in your mind, obviously, you'd go, well, at least he got custody at the beginning, maybe. I don't know.
No, I would straight off the bat and go, if he was abusive, then the correct parent should have got, which would have been your mother, or if you're product of, obviously, same-sex couple, your other dad. Sure. Same with lesbians, same with... It's each individual case by itself.
Yeah, I mean, what I was trying to get up, and maybe that was a bad example on analogy on my part, but what I was trying to get at was that they had a form of outrage for what they perceived as a persecution of what was going on, and it was a validation of what their own ideas and feelings were. Now, when you see exactly the same thing on the opposite side, is it a case that sometimes that you can get wrapped up into the idea of following that persecution because it reinforces your ideas and stereotype, and it's the same thing on the opposite side? And because both of you are having a reaction at the same time to reinforce your own ideas, is that the clash that's stopping you from being able to talk with each other?
Most of the time, yes. Like Rebecca in chat says, I think it's important to bring up men's issues. Maybe men's rights activists have the same problem feminists do. The extreme activists will, with the loudest voices, have ruined all's reputation and cause. That is 100% true. Thing is, there are some people out there who aren't MRAs, who just scream about actual misogynistic shit, who then get labelled as MRAs, and it destroys the reputation for us all. We're just trying to, obviously, there are men's issues in society that aren't being addressed, aren't being fixed. We want to fix them. Whereas there are people who are saying, oh, women who go out dressed like sluts and etc. deserve to be raped, etc. It's like, no, that is not what we're about at all. But they're being falsely labelled MRAs because people have the common conception that that's what MRAs believe. We don't.
Yeah. I suppose it's a case of the bad apples are normally the ones that are shouting the loudest, and normally when people are looking for their, should we say, confirmation of their biases towards a particular group, they're the ones that are used as examples to prove their biases. Yes. We do this sometimes with the feminazis, Old Red and whatnot. So we would use that to prove the fact that all feminists are not necessarily bad in general, because I'm prefacing this, but most people would try and say that all feminists are bad. Look at Red, look how bad she was, and the patriarchy and everything else like that. And it goes on both sides. It's a case of, for me, I feel that it's the identity of what the politics stand for rather than what the politics are now. It's more about what banner you're holding and what banner you're under determines if you're good enough to be able to talk to somebody, rather than it being, are your politics good, regardless of who it may be.
Yeah, I mean, I sit there and try to address a feminist on Twitter, and now I know not all are like this, but because there are some good ones out there, obviously I say some of them follow me, we sit and talk, and we do. If there's a problem that they think about what I say, I'll sit there and listen, and then I'll obviously counter them with this and that and the other. And rather than have a screaming match, we'll sit there and we have a conversation, talk, debate, present both sides of the aisle, how we talk. We may not all agree, and we may go up, and we may obviously still hold our same beliefs as we went in with, but at least we had the dialogue.
Well, that's the point. You don't necessarily go into dialogue to change the person's mind, especially if it's something like this, where it's online and other people are watching. Excuse me.
You're going to try and change the minds of those watching.
Exactly. You change the minds of the people that are in the middle, because sometimes people that are on ardent sides or opposite sides generally have their views, and normally they're encased and stoned and castleized or fortified. So generally you're not going to change those points of views. But if you have two people that are vehemently good at what side and each side that they can argue, then you're going to be able to change the minds of the people that are in the middle one way or another, because you get both sides of the argument.
Yeah, like there's one feminist that follows me. So yeah, that's what she said. She's only ever seen the feminist side to it, but after she followed me, after we had a little bit of a discussion, and she sees what the evidence I present, obviously, I believe in burden of proof. If I make a claim, I back that up with as much empirical data as I can.
Yeah.
Like when I say 70% of domestic violence, let me correct that. 70% of non-reciprocal domestic violence is initiated by women. I have several studies that show that, so I like to cite those. Whereas you get some feminists go 98% of this are men, but it's because of this reason, and don't provide evidence. Like earlier, like the 98% of, there's one that's 98% of rape are men, because men can't get pregnant from rape, so therefore 98% of rapists are men. Yeah, it's like, that's no backing up. Whereas if I say no, it's actually more 50-50, with 79.2% of men made to penetrate done so by women, I present as much evidence as I can that proves I've got them all on my phone saved, so that I can quickly access them. Like when people say, oh, women are most abused online. It's like, no, there are two categories where women are mostly face the most abuse online, and that's sexual threats and I think sexual stalking. But overall, men face the most abuse online. And when obviously you try to present the proof to that, they've probably blocked you by then, because you offered a a different viewpoint to what they believe. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I agree. When it comes to some aspects of online abuse, women are victimized more than men. That's a given. But as overall, it's men who face the most abuse.
Especially from other men as well.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that you could quite easily go down as well. Men are more likely to be robbed and mugged and burgled on the way homes and whatnot, and more likely to have physical altercations compared to women. But there are aspects of women that have more crimes that are and do, unfortunately, affect them a hell of a lot more. I do think that it's a case of the ideologies themselves with the labels that we give the ideologies. Because I think this is an inherently millennial thing, where because of the labels that we give things, we intrinsically put labels to we humanize the labels. So if you say that you're an MRA and I say, well, I'm a feminist, naturally you are going to have a preconception of both sides straight away, because we do that. We quickly decide what we're going to think because we need to make a prejudgment. And because of those identity politics now, those identities are now installed into the words. So we only see the word rather than the person now. At least that's what I think anyway. What do you think on that?
I think all sides can be guilty of that. Absolutely. It's something we need to work past if we want to address all issues that men face and all issues that women face. That's what I keep trying to say in my videos. So if you're a feminist watching this, please comment why you think this, why you think men think this. And let's have a dialogue, because people aren't, and it really frustrates me. Like, I'll sit there and do something like my Let's Talk video about Me Too. Like, you have feminists sit there and say, oh, men, the Me Too label isn't about men, yada yada. Yet the moment men create a hashtag for them to speak about their own sexual assault stories, they get dogpiled. I mean, I did.
No, I completely agree with you. It's even more funny with the idea of Me Too movement that the person who founded the Me Too movement was trying to pay off a 17-year-old from having sex with them.
Yeah. I mean,
so, Melania, or whatever her fucking name is, Italiano Melania, or whatever her name was.
Asia Argento.
Yes, that's the one. That's the one.
But the thing is, we always hear about Harvey Weinstein. We still hear about him today. I did 2 videos on Asia Argento, and I've not heard nothing since.
No.
Where they she came out and said, well, he's the one that initiated the sex, yada yada. It's like, he was still 17 when you had sex with him. In California, where the state's sexual age of consent is 18.
Yes.
Even if he's the one that initiated it, which I doubt it, because he's the one that went to the press first.
Yes.
He's the one that
and he was the one who wanted money from it as well, because he had psychological breakdown.
Yeah. A man who initiated sex with a woman doesn't do that. Trust me.
Generally not.
Yeah, exactly. Genuinely not. And obviously, we don't hear about her anymore.
No.
She admitted that yes, they did have sex, but he initiated it. Even if that's true, which I don't believe, obviously, because I've read all statements on it, and it's not because he's a man. If it was reversed, I'd still agree with if it was like a 17-year-old woman or a 17-year-old girl, and
at the time,
I'd still agree with her, because after all, still underage, still cannot consent. You still admitted,
at least at that point.
Yeah, by the law, you still admitted to having sex with him.
Yeah.
You still committed a crime, and you faced nothing from it.
Yeah.
I mean, women.
You know that you did wrong because you actually paid money off to him. But I mean, that's going off into the weeds, so to speak, when we're kind of talking about what the ideologies is. We can all understand the reasons why certain people would look at, especially something like that, and go, well, it's not equal. I mean, we've got Rebecca Faith in the chat that is basically saying exactly the same thing as us, and as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure that she's a feminist by her own admission, which is great. And thank you very much for coming onto the channel and speaking as well. So thank you for that. And I think that it's amazing that you can find that type of person that can have the middle ground, so you can actually have the conversations with people.
Yeah, I try to find that as much as I possibly can, because I would rather have a talk with someone than shitsling.
Yeah.
Like she says that, and false allegations are a huge issue. You can never prove innocence. I cover a lot of false accusations on my channel. I mean, I have 9 videos in a playlist chock full of them. And obviously, the data that's come out of most feminists would sit there and like to cite the 2 to 8% study that a FBI study found. I've read that study. Nowhere in there does it allude to 2.2 to 8%. That came solely from a woman who interviewed a woman who claimed to work for the FBI. So it's sort of like a whisper, 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 and now it's enshrined in stone that it's 2 to 8%. I've looked at studies.
Oh yeah, the false rape claims. No, the actual person, I remember because I did a video on it myself. The actual study goes along the lines of around about 38 to 47%.
Yes. Now, even if we want to be here in England, there's about 95,000 rapes a year. If we follow the same suit of 2 to 8%, and we go to the conservative 8%, that's 7,500 men per year falsely accused of rape.
Yeah.
And feminists will sit there and go, or some feminists will sit there and go, that's false rape accusations are not a big issue.
Yeah.
That's potentially 7,500 men who would be in jail.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I mean, to flip it so that certain people would be able to understand the correlation, transgender people are around about 0.2 to 0.8% of the whole entire world's population. Now, I agree that they should have rights. As human rights, I agree that they should have rights. But if you were to say, for instance, and flip it and go, well, it's only 2%, doesn't really matter. It's not an issue. Then you're condemning those people as well.
Yeah. It's like they sit there, some feminists sit there and go, well, we got to think about the victims. It's like those who are falsely accused are victims.
Exactly.
They've been the victim of a campaign against them. They've been the victim of the law working against them.
Yeah.
And they've been the victim of a crime themselves, because perjury and making a false accusation is a crime. Most people don't sit there and think a false accusation can cause that much strife. But I've covered...
You destroy your life because you're always tarnished with that brush then.
Yeah, and I've covered stories of men being beaten to death over that lie. They're men literally losing their lives because a woman, man, doesn't matter, because someone made a false accusation. I'd feel the same if it was a woman who got falsely accused. Don't falsely accuse people. How hard is that to understand?
Yeah, and if you do know that people are falsely accusing people, then all it does is actually diminish the point of rape in general, unfortunately. Because if you know that there's false rape claims and people are doing stories on the false rape claims, then all it does is go, well, are you telling the truth? All it does is make the people that are telling the truth be more skeptical to be accepted, because more and more people are now talking about false rape. Get rid of the false rape claims. Accept it, get on with it, get rid of it. Then you have more equality.
Yeah, I mean, like there's this thing that they're thinking about introducing in England, where obviously go through the person who accuses the accuser's phone to obviously gather evidence, because it's coming out that they're having to go through hundreds of cases where the evidence to find that the person was innocent, who they've sent to jail, has been falsely accused, and they found them guilty.
Yeah, I believe there was a story with a particular girl. If anybody wants to find out, I did 2 parts of the story. It is in the video. It is in one of my playlists. Where there was a woman that was she was lesbian, and she was actually accusing around about 6 to 7 people that have gang raped her, and she was only able to identify one of the men, and he spent around about 2 to 2.5 years, 2 to 5 years in prison, after they found out that she actually was falsifying everything and was actually lying about everything.
I think I know who you're talking about. She's
eventually quite a biggish girl. She's quite a biggish girl.
Yeah, she got thrown into prison for a decade.
Yes.
For her false accusations. I know exactly who you're talking about. She falsely accused around a dozen men. 12 men.
Yeah.
And so that's 12 false rape accusations. Yeah, and as you said, one of them spent time in jail for a crime he did not commit. Like, I know people are going to shout at me like this, but let's say Brock Turner, for instance. He's always maintained that he had consent, but all he's claiming happened is she was into him all night. They have witnesses to say that. And obviously they went outside for a fumble, but because she was pissed, she passed out.
Yeah.
And that's when obviously the two men found her. Do I agree that he's innocent? No. He still did it after she passed out drunk.
Yeah.
He should have stopped. I can 100% see that. But under that law, because it was California again, they've introduced a yes means yes law, where you have to prove you had consent. And because he can't prove he had consent, because she was so wasted she can't remember, done for sexual assault.
That's just ridiculous, though, in itself as a law. That if you were to say that, right, say for instance, as a hypothetical, we're both straight, I presume, but if not, doesn't matter, that me and you decided that we were going to go off in the woods together, and we both decided that we were going to do anything, but I regretted it afterwards. You raped me, mate.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's how it works now.
That's just amazing to me in itself, that there's a law that is... Now, don't get me wrong, I can understand that the law being put into place as a way of trying to help victims. I can understand that. But it's put in such a bad faith, and it takes away the burden of proof to be able to go, you are innocent to proven guilty, to you are guilty and to proven innocent. And law should never work that way, ever.
No, absolutely not.
To be fair, Nate Dye has made an exceptionally great point. Did she get his consent as well?
He never actually said. All that he maintains is that he had consent all the way through it. And all that happened was he inserted a finger, she crashed, but because she woke up after the two guys found him, and obviously sat on him until the police there, because obviously they don't know what happened. They just know what they saw.
Yeah.
Can't blame them for that.
No, I mean, I think that Netta Dye, sorry, my eyes are bad. I believe that person is trying to actually say that, well, if she's saying that she didn't consent, he can say exactly the same thing.
Yeah, like Rebecca says, do the drunk rules get applied if the man is drunk? No.
No.
They don't. It's only if it's a woman. So it's literally, if a man... there's literally a poster of Josie... say it's like Josie is drunk, Peter is drunk. They have sex. Josie couldn't consent. Peter is a rapist.
Yeah.
It's like they're both equally drunk. In fact, the man could be more pissed than a woman, and a woman can be sober.
Yeah.
Still not rape. Whereas if it's the reverse, the man is only slightly tipsy and she's drunk. The thing is, that's what I've had people trying to tell me about the Brock Turner thing. It's like she was too...
It's from ignorance, though.
Yeah, too drunk to stand up, etc. It's like, if that's the case, how did he get her out of the club?
Yeah, I mean, you can say the same thing for the woman, though. But I mean, I think it comes from when you are saying that a man can't get raped. I think it comes from ignorance, because we touched on this before, where a man can get erect, so if he can get erect, then he's consenting. It's like, do you not understand that a woman can orgasm while being raped? Does that mean it's consented if you got her to orgasm?
I've actually looked at the statistics. It's anything from 5 to 12% of women do orgasm during rape. It's like,
sure. What I meant was that they can, not that they do. I meant that they can. So if they can orgasm as an argument, does that mean that they're no longer being raped because they consented?
The thing is, that's what we try to get across. It's like a biological function doesn't negate a criminal act taking place. Like, men get erections in our sleep. It's just natural. Does that mean we consent to sex if we wake up to someone riding us? No, because we're unconscious, we cannot consent.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I think Rock got charged, because she fell unconscious.
Mm.
Like, it started out that, she was awake, but she fell unconscious. That's why. And obviously, she couldn't remember giving consent, so charged. Boom, done.
Yeah.
That's obviously why the the judge only gave him a small, what do you call it?
Sentence.
That's one, thank you. I keep forgetting the words.
That's all right. We all get that way.
Yeah. Like, yes, I do agree that he should have gone to jail, because she passed out. She could no longer consent. He should have stopped.
Mm.
But before then, he maintains that she had consent, or he had consent. Therefore, it was fine. It's like, that's kind of where the grey area comes in.
I mean, there's lots of grey areas. I just wish that more and more people, rather than being just purely ideologically opposed because of identity, which is what I think all of this is about, all of, with the MGTOWs, with MRAs, and with feminists, you all see that there's a problem with society, and you all want to do something to change the societal problems, but you all separate rather than coming together and decide, not by choice necessarily, but by, unfortunately, design of identity politics. And you all pull away, and you all polarize each other, and you all stigmatize each other. And yes, generalizations, there are outliers like yourself that are pulling people in. But generally, it's amazing because everybody wants to try and have their own version of benefit in society, regardless of what ideologies are. They generally do it because they see a problem and they want to change it. Even with the most horriblest and heinous of ideas, they still generally are trying to do it because they think it's going to benefit in some way. Not endorsement of anything, but generally most people are doing it because they actually believe that it's going to be beneficial. So why can't we drop the identity?
I would happily drop the identity tomorrow if we could all work together to fix men's issues.
Mm.
But it's dependent on everyone. See, as I said, I'd do it, but then you get there and sit and see some feminists who sit there and say men's issues are caused by toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. Yet you try and talk to them about how these aren't things like the patriarchy, how they describe it, doesn't exist in the West, at least.
Not in the way that they describe it, no.
Yeah, I will concede that it does in the East and the Middle East, there, and it does exist in some places in the world, but not here in the West, the way they describe it.
I would say that some institutions have it, but I wouldn't say it's institutionalized as they try to proclaim it as. I would say some institutions may be that way, but generally, no, you're correct.
But then you have to look at what those institutions are. Like the institution of...
No, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Some might be, but that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that it's institutionalized patriarchy.
Yeah,
it just means that the institution itself is doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously you sit there and go, well, define toxic masculinity, and they reel off all these behaviours that women also partake in. It's well, then wouldn't that be toxic femininity as well? They go, no, there's no such thing. So I try to get across them that if one exists, then so does the other.
Definitely.
If you say toxic masculinity exists and there's stereotypes that negatively impact men, say like men are aggressive, etc., etc.
See, my argument would have been completely and utterly different. See, as soon as they would have used that word stereotype, I would go, oh, so you believe in stereotypes?
Oh, you don't usually get to that point. Once you say to them that you don't think it exists, they usually either mute you, block you, or just screech at you until you, fuck this, I give up. And that's how they try to do it. That's how they are so prevalent with what they do. Because you try to get across your ideas and you try to not spin it, but offer the counterpoint.
Yeah.
And they won't allow you to. They will literally sit there and shout at you, shout you down, call you this, that, and the other under the sun.
As I was
trying to say earlier, MRAs like myself, and there's many of us. I mean, like the Honey Badgers, Karen Straw and all that. We sit there and try and offer the olive branch and say, if there's issues, we need to work to fix them together.
Yeah.
And they will throw it back at us like they don't want it. We try our damnedest and our hardest to try and get somewhere, but they won't allow us to. Like with Paul Elam, for example, he took a Jezebel article, flipped the genders. Literally, that's all he did. Flipped the genders, and now because he did that, they call him a misogynist, every name under the sun. Which is like, the thing is, I don't think
you pointed out a contradiction. The sad thing with identity politics, or what I've seen to have noticed anyway, is that if you point out contradictions in worldviews, that people build up their worldview so strongly that if you start challenging their political ideologies, that it actually destroys their worldview. Their worldview and identity stems on their identity in politics.
Yeah.
So you're not actually arguing the points of politics anymore with most people. You're actually arguing their sense of identity or faith, if you want to put it that way.
Yes, most people have said that feminism is a godless faith.
Because I would say that politics,
politics in general is.
Yeah, I would say politics 100%. Nowadays is turning into a faith-based system.
Yeah, like Reason says, toxic femininity doesn't exist because it's done by women, but toxic masculinity exists because it's done by men. That's exactly how they view it.
Yeah, that may be how they do it, but I think that's a stereotype in itself. And I know that I've been saying that stereotypes are necessarily a good thing. It makes for quick, snappy decisions. When it's talking about issues, I don't think that the stereotypes themselves should be fit, not unless it's to describe a stereotype to make a point.
Yeah. Like, so toxic masculinity, it's like you try to sit there and say you don't want stereotypes, yet you use the same stereotypes you say you don't want to exist to describe men. It's like, no, how can you do that? It's like, so, okay then. Thing is, what they try, as I said, what they try to pass off as toxic masculinity, women partake in themselves. Like, there's some feminists will sit there and say, "Oh, toxic masculinity is aggression towards the opposite sex for not wanting sex or rape or etc."
You mean like a sex ban?
Yeah, it's like, well, women do that to men. Wouldn't that therefore be toxic femininity? And it's block.
Yeah.
It's like
no, I completely not agree with you. I mean, one of my exes was trying to say that, oh, I'm going to give you a sex ban. I was like, okay, you do that. She was like, why aren't you bothered? I was like, well, I'll go find sex somewhere else. She's like, you can't do that. We're in a relationship. It's like, you're literally stopping me, if you were to consent, obviously, to have sex with you because you're trying to punish me for something that you don't want me to do. Yeah. So guess what? That means that we're no longer in a mutual relationship anymore. That means that you're trying to take control of the relationship. Guess what? No relationship. Fuck off.
And that's considered coercive control, and now under new domestic violence law here in England, it's classed as domestic abuse.
Yep.
Feminists will sit there and say, stop trying to use women's sexuality as a crux to try and get men to do what they want, yet in the same breath, do exactly what they're accusing everybody else of doing. It's like, how can you not see the hypocrisy? Like, my body, my choice. It's like, fine, your body, your choice. But don't you dare partake in circumcision. It's no longer your body. You do not get to choose. No, so I'm a parent. I know what's best for my child. It's like, it's not your body, though. It's no longer your choice.
Exactly. No, I completely not agree. The hypocrisy does seem to be quite, well, let's say strong, but I think that people look at views and look at different situations, and rather than sticking to an actual idea or worldview, they stick to certain rules and they try and fit into their ideology and their worldview, but generally their own emotion, as in, oh, I want this to happen anyway, or I want this to do. And it does seem that with materialism in itself, that we have turned into a westernized nation of going, I want is a good thing. I want is never a good thing. I
want never gets.
Yeah, exactly.
I was raised on that principle. I want never gets. If I went into a shop, I went, I want this, I left without it.
Yep.
Whereas if I went into a shop with my mum or my nan, said, may I have, then I got it because I was polite. It's not, I want it. It's not, I have to have it. It's like, may I have it, please? It's like, rather than pushing on the boundaries of being impolite, being basically a C word, you concede that you don't necessarily want it or need it, but it'd be nice to have.
Well, that's exactly that. I mean, that's why I think that in itself that these ideologies themselves seem to stem in the same sort of ideological process, but the process in itself seems to have been changed, as you said before, with changing the word in an article. And both sections, and I include MGTOW in this as well, seem to have changed what they perceive to be the problem as being one instances of ideological problems. I think that's very, very interesting to me that all sets of these three ideologies that we'll be covering seem to have almost the same footprint in their creation, as in it's societal problems that we need to fix in one way or another, depending on what way you choose to fix them, either by leaving or trying to make things equal. But it's the sex, it's the gender that seems to be what the pivotal role is in this. If you were to change feminist doctrine to Mao doctrine, as in Mao, then it would be a case that MRAs and MGTOWs would be interested in what they had to say. And vice versa, if feminist rhetoric was turned into men, then it would be a case of if it was the opposite way around, men's right activists would turn it into feminism, then it would be a case of more feminists would listen. It seems like that word, that gender, is so specific now and so ideologically strung up in people's minds for particular stereotypes or connotations in itself, should we say, that stops political discourse more than anything else.
But the thing is, they also sit there and have to realise the people that they're trying to obviously demonise and say we're the devil, etc., etc. We're trying to also fix the issues that affect, say, minority men, like black men, Muslim men, gay men, trans men. They don't sit. They sit there and think, "Oh, they're just for white men." No, we want to fix issues for men. Like when we say like there's a sentencing gap, the sentencing gap for men is 6 times larger. For men against women is 6 times larger for black against white.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's what we try to get across to them. That black man who's going to jail is going to jail longer for 2 reasons: 1, because he's black, and 2, because he's a man.
Yeah.
A black woman gets less time in jail than a white man.
Yeah.
Because woman takes precedent rather than her colour. Whereas a black man has the twofold. Like, we're trying to stop all discrimination against men. That includes against all men.
Yeah.
And they just can't see it that way.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, I do think that it's very interesting because I keep on saying it because it's interesting. The ideologies are so interlinked and so interlined with each other that if people were, I'm not saying you, but in the stereotypes of each ideological strain, if they were to stop shouting past each other, they'd realize that they have so much more in common than what they have that divides them. And I know that's a cliche to say,
yes,
but it is so fucking true.
Yeah, it's true for all human nature. And it's a shame we have to learn this from a Pokemon show. But what unites us on the planet outweighs what divides us.
Yeah.
We have the same earth, the same air, the same sky, the same life. We are living, we're the same. Shades of skin should not, and genitals should not change that. We're all just trying to live this life that we're given, address the issues we face. Whereas if one person has a dangly bit and one has a ninny, it doesn't matter. We're all trying to address issues, and that should be what matters most. Like, we'll sit there and they'll call us misogynistic. The most prominent MRAs to exist on this planet are all women. Like, when it comes to starting domestic, the very first, she may not be an MRA, but the very first MRA I actually sort of listened to was Erin Pizzey. And she was a staunch feminist, and she started England's first domestic violence shelters for women.
Ah, yeah.
Yet she try to say, because through her own experiences of speaking to the women and finding out what has happened, she found out that women were just as, if not more, violent than the men.
Yeah.
So she tried to open domestic violence shelters for men because they needed somewhere too. And she got shut down.
What study that she found that in, which I found very interesting? They found that in lesbian couples more than anything else, and they were wondering why that would happen in not their perfect idea as relationships, but how the two women should be treating each other equal. But in fact, the disparity was that there was always, well, not always, sorry, but there was a very high percentage of women that would end up battering women more than men would batter women, and that's she found the study from.
Yeah, there is, as you said, a study where it shows that after bisexual women who have the highest rate of domestic abuse, it goes to lesbians, heterosexual women, bisexual men, straight men, gay men. Two men together have the lowest. I said bisexual women twice, didn't I?
You did, yeah, but it doesn't matter. We got it.
I think you know what.
Yeah.
I think you know what I'm trying to talk about. It shows that two men together have the lowest form of domestic violence. So if you listen to some feminists when I say it's always men, that should not be the case. It should be two men together have the highest out of everyone, but it's not. They have the lowest. So you have to look at why. Is it because the world isn't exactly how they view it? Because that would be the case more than anything.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Because obviously bisexual women the first, because they both men and women.
Yeah.
And as I've said earlier, when it comes to around about a quarter of all relationships have some kind of domestic abuse. 50% of that is reciprocal, i.e. both hammering at each other. Toxic relationship overall, both hit each other.
Yeah.
But when it comes to non-reciprocal, which is obviously the other half, 70% of the abuse is started by the woman or initiated by the woman. So you have to look at core issues as to why. You can't just say, oh, domestic violence is a male problem, men need to fix it. Because that's not true when you actually look into the statistics.
I suppose I'm going to go down the route of being a little bit misogynist on this point. Would you say that the main difference from the ideological standpoint between, let's go with MRAs and feminists, as I think they're the most closest ideologically aligned, do you think that the differences from being able to talk and the differences from how some feminists, not all feminists, but some feminists react is due to the stereotype of emotional or women being more emotional in arguments?
Probably, because men, obviously speaking in generalizations here, men tend to look at things more logical, whereas women tend to look at things more emotive. Whereas, see, I can sit there and look at statistics and I won't get wound up by them. Something whether you say to a feminist 1 in 5, that will trigger some emotive response. Whereas I've actually looked into the 1 in 5 number. It only had about 5,500 respondents over 2 universities, and was said in the test, this is not representative of the nation. But people like Rain ran with it, and now it's a statistic in the country.
Yeah.
It's like that's how it happens. And the thing is, you sit there and the person who conducted that experience, Mary Koss, she sits there and says that she doesn't think women can rape men, that she'd call it unwanted sexual contact rather than rape. And then
that's
they
the
bring
opposite way around them.
Yeah, but they bring her on to help define the CDC's definition of rape. So it all builds up.
There's definitely politics, and one side definitely has more power than the opposite side.
Yeah, but the thing is, they sit there and they'll build themselves a narrative, and then they'll build on top of that, and then build and branch off. Like and yet the study I cite with the 70% that comes from Harvard, has rather double the respondents that the 1 in 5 from the colleges, and people don't believe it, but they'd sit there and believe the respondents because it fits into what they generally believe.
Yeah. I mean, to go on to narratives and very quickly to show difference in sides. You have a leading research fellow for transgenderism, and actually helped write the DSM-5 or DSM-5, sorry, for the definitions of transgenderism and gender dysphoria and whatnot. I believe his name's called Keith Blanchard, I believe, but his last name is Blanchard.
Yes, I think I've heard that. Dr. Blanchard, I've heard his name.
Yeah. And somebody asked him on Twitter to define where his political allegiances lie. And he's basically saying that he completely and utterly accepts that gender dysphoria is real, as it is, obviously. It's a mental condition. But he called it that. He called it a mental condition and mental problem and whatnot, and went on to define a couple of other bits and pieces. He was chucked off Twitter for 24 hours because of what he put down in a thread to explain what that is. That's the leading fellow in transgender dysphoria. He's a psychologist, and they booted him off because of him not having the right think.
Yeah, I mean, he's the expert.
Yes.
The world's leading expert, and poof, gone. The thing is, it's like when Tim Pool went on to speak to Jack Dorsey and Vidya, whatever her last name is, that Twitter is left ideology driven. And when he brought up the dead naming or pronoun thing, that obviously they introduced. That's what I said. It's try to protect people. So the thing is, that's what he tried to get across to him. Conservatives don't believe in that sort of thing. So you're putting an ideological spin onto it where it should not exist.
Yeah. Like I said, I find that the ideology, the ideologies are very similar. I think that there's outliers on all sides. I think that the middle of both sides needs to get together a hell of a lot more to be able to talk more. But it's finding those middles and having the conversations then actually put into the mainstream so people can listen to them. Because even if you were to have the mainstream conversations, if it's not broadcasted, people are not going to follow it anyway. People are not going to understand that you have good intentions and they have good intentions. The preconceptions and connotations of words are going to define what they think people think rather than listening to them.
Yeah.
It's like with David Baker, the one that got recently sacked off of the BBC and Twitter. It's like he was saying what he thought that he was doing, but people were putting words into his mouth. Well, not words into his mouth, but people were defining what he did himself rather than actually listening to what he said.
Yes, like
logically fucking redundant. How can you know what I'm thinking if I'm telling you what I thought?
Yeah, exactly. Like if your first instinct is to look at a couple with a monkey and automatically think that's a black person, then that's on you rather than the poster, because that's where your mind automatically went.
Yeah.
So like if I like the teacher, the t-shirt with cheeky monkey on it in a black kid.
Yeah.
I found nothing wrong with that image at all. It's just a model.
That's why.
It's just a model wearing a t-shirt. It's those people. It's the people who accused others of being racist that automatically thought they were calling that black kid a monkey. So no, it's just a model wearing a t-shirt. He got paid handsomely for that job.
As far as I remember, and please correct me if I'm wrong, chat, and anybody else that watches, but as far as I remember, the model was actually South African, and where it all come from was from South Africa.
Yeah, but the thing is, even the mother came out and said, "There's nothing wrong with this. I wouldn't have put him forward for the modelling job if I had found issue with it." But they completely ignored her. Like going back to the false accusations thing.
Yeah,
you've got a person called Tom or something Allen, and there was a feminist. She said that basically it wasn't chucked out. His case wasn't chucked out because it was a false accusation. It was just the evidence was presented too late. You had him, the person himself, going to her saying, no, the evidence was found on her phone. It was presented and the judge ruled it a false accusation. It was thrown out for being a false accusation.
Oh yeah, they did an actual story on that. That if the police didn't check the female's phone,
he would
then
have gone to jail.
it would have gone to court, and he would have actually probably been found guilty.
Yeah, but no, they found the evidence, found that she was falsely accused, and found that it was all consensual. Scott Allen.
I think it was Scott Allen.
I don't know. I know his last name was Allen. Yeah, Scott Allen does sound correct.
Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, they went through her phone and found out that, yeah, it was a false accusation. So they chucked it out for being a false accusation. You've got the feminist telling the man, his lawyer, and the people who were in the court, court while it was ruled, that no, it wasn't thrown out for being a false accusation. It was thrown out through lack of evidence. It's like, no, they were there. It's the person himself.
Well, going back to the false accusation culture, you can use the instance of Jussie Smollett. Different kind of false accusation, obviously. But the way that the media in the city and the country in itself seems to have protected Jussie Smollett sickens me. Not because of what he did and who he is and whatnot, but it's the fact that the country in itself has defended him, has decided that they're going to basically protect him and not actually give him any sort of form of reprimand. The only reprimand that he's got is that Empire decided to fire him. That's it.
They chose not to, actually. He's still part of the show.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
But Fox has come out and said the next season of Empire will be the last after what Jussie Smollett did. But the thing is, you sit there and pick there and go, oh, it's not a privilege. It's like, yes, it is. The only real privilege in life is money. This proves it. Jussie Smollett proves it. Do you think Tyrone from the Hood or Billy Bob from the Trailer Park would have been able to get away with either of that?
No.
Either of them wouldn't have been able to do that. So it's not about race. It was about the amount of money he had.
I don't even think it was about race. I think it was more about politics. I think identity politics played so much more into that aspect than anything else. Because with the idea of the identity politics, it was a black man being beaten up by Trump supporters. That was the story. That's what everybody remembered. Now, if it was the opposite way round and Ku Klux Klansmen were beating up a black man with the noose and whatnot, then you would expect it to go fucking all the way around the world, which it did because it was Trump supporters. But if it was, as I was meant to say, the actual opposite way round, where you had Black Panthers, for instance, Panthers in general, that were beating up a white nationalist or white person, whatever, then it would be a case of nobody would give a shit.
I mean, Tim Pool reports on them all the time. That's what he says. That's what he says. I wish I didn't have to, because it makes me seem I'm more this way, leaning politically. But when these happen more, I'm going to report on them. And it's Trump supporters being attacked for their hats, for just being there, then the other way around. It's like the most famous cases, like of a Trump supporter removing someone's hijab after Trump won, going, this is Trump land or whatever, and all this and that and the other, they've all come out and proven to be false. But what's not been proven to be false and been proven to right is Trump supporters being attacked constantly for just supporting their president.
And actually being discriminated against, thrown out of restaurants, having guns drawn on them, and so on and so forth. I do find it very interesting when you have certain people ideologically disproposed, where they say, oh, Trump supporters are not persecuted, everybody else is. It's like, yeah, but we're not comparing everybody being persecuted. Let's be honest, most black people are very persecuted in their own ways and in individualizations. Not in...
We're not denying that's a thing. We're just saying that can happen as well as this can happen. They don't need to be this or that. It's both. It's like, you can't have... It's not black people are this, white people are that. It's in a mismatch of... It happens to... Like, as I was saying, it's like... say the term white privilege. It's like you try to get across to people like white people have more privilege than black people. It's like, do you really think that, say, Billy Bob from the Trailer Park is going to have a better life, go to the best schools, and have the amount of money that, say, Obama's daughters will? It's like, that's the ex-president's daughters. They're set for life.
Sure.
Best schools, best jobs, best money, best everything. Billy Bob from the trailer park, who's got 2 teeth and fucks his sister, he's not going to have a good life.
Well, I don't know. Depends on how much you love your sister. Sorry about
that. That was fine. It just made
my white privilege was showing.
Yeah, the thing is, people look at it as a wholesome game when it's not. It's like, they'll sit there and say, like, male privilege and men have this privilege. Like, yes, maybe, but we also have responsibilities that go along with those privileges.
Yeah, everybody has privileges, though. That's
Women have these privileges, and they don't have the responsibilities that come along with them.
Well, Rebecca Faith in the chat has just made the most extremely biggest and most important point of the night.
The biggest social divide is money.
Is money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's class and money.
Yep. That's completely and utterly true.
Yep.
Class and money. Completely and utterly agree. Right, I'm going to be wrapping this up very, very soon. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about?
Oh, I'm completely fine. And apart from go check out my channel if you like what you see. Subscribe. If you don't, leave a comment as to why. I'm always looking to improve my content, improve my stances. Come have a dialogue, and we'll work through this together.
Yeah. I would just like to ask. I don't know if Rebecca Faith is somebody from your side or if she's a subscriber of mine. But if you have anything to do with Twitter, Rebecca, if you would like to message me or even leave a comment down below and leave me in an email or something like that, cool. Thank you very much. I would love to have you on to be able to talk to you as well. I know I'm having a different feminist on Saturday, but I would love to have you on to be able to talk to you as well. And I'm sure Kay would invite you on as well.
Absolutely. If you want to come and have a chat, let me know. I'm sure. In fact, I'll comment now my Twitter handle. Come have a chat, and I'll be more than welcome to have you. I'll be more than happy to welcome you onto my channel and have a sit and have a talk with you.
Oh, cool. It actually works. When I actually post it out to Facebook, it actually works. Well, in that case, then, Rebecca, you could message me on Facebook. I would love to have you on to be able to talk to you and understand what your ideas are as well. Because I think the most interesting thing about the internet is the fact that we have this opportunity to speak to vast amounts of people and nobody does it.
Yeah. So that is the beauty of the internet. We can talk with people all around the world, but people choose not to. But that's what I want. I want a dialogue. I want to be able to speak to people, give my ideas over, listen to their ideas. We may not agree. We may end up leaving no different than when we went in, but at least we had the dialogue. There is one thing I want to ask you before we go. Can I move this on my channel?
Of course you can.
Thank you.
Of course you can. With that being said, I think that should be a perfect time to end the stream, if that's okay with everyone.
That's fine with me. How about everyone in chat?
Well, they don't get a say. They don't get a say. To hell with them. No. Thank you very much, guys, for coming out. Thank you very much, Kay, as well, for coming in and agreeing to come on. I've enjoyed the chat very, very much. It's been very entertaining. I should have got into the ideology a bit more, but I think that with the discussion that we've had, we've been able to explore the ideology much more than straightforward questioning.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure actually coming on. I know I said a couple of months ago I'll come on, but obviously not had the time, been looking for work, etc., etc. But I'm free. I was free today, so that's what I said. Of course, I'll come on. Glad I did. It's been a fun chat.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Right then, you bunch of bigots. I'm going to see you later. Kay's going to see you later. Take care. Bye-bye for now.